Finally getting some sporadic child care.
Oh, good.
Yes,
Uh,
slowly but surely.
let's share the screen. Here's that. Hit share. Good. All done. Great. From the beginning, sure. Let's do that. Good morning, everybody. It is session 13 of Ignite, qualifying potential buyers and sellers. I'm positive we're doing Wednesday's class. Friday is a little up in the air. I'm not sure if we're going to have somebody to cover it. We're going to get everything done by the end of May, but I think stay tuned for Friday, and next Monday and Wednesday, we are not going to have class because most of us, Zoe and I, will be in Texas for a leadership thing. So we'll get started again next Friday, but we should be here Wednesday, possibly here Friday, and then next Monday and Wednesday we'll be off. And if you're watching this later on the intertubes, it's not going to matter to you anyway, but I'm just making it clear to the people in the room. So let's get going. So we're in the lead follow-up pillar, right? We talked about being the real estate expert. We've talked about lead generation. Now we're doing lead follow-up. We talked about keeping every lead, following up with those leads. Doesn't matter if we hold on to them or if we never talk to them. Strengthening relationships was last Friday. And now we want to make sure we're qualifying potential buyers and sellers as they get to the point where they are beginning to behave as transactional. One of the blessings that we're going to talk about today is finding the motivated. Historically, at this time of year, all of the jackalopes, it's a French word, look it up. All of the jackalopes come out of the bushes and they're like, you know what, Tim, if we could get our price, because it feels like, and this was exacerbated, never mind a typical spring in real estate, this was exacerbated by COVID. Because somebody could have bought a house in 2019 for $16. They probably sold it for 1.8 during COVID because everybody lost their mind. So we're dealing with that velocity of the marketplace. We're dealing with the fact that at one point, you'll hear great stories of people riding unicorns away from their lender's office with a 2.5, a 2.4, maybe a 2.6. That's gone too, right? We are at new rates. These are the rates. So finding the motivated, the blessing of COVID and the blessing of the market that we're in right now is that people have to be motivated. Nobody's scoring on equity right now. There's still equity to be scored on, but people aren't rushing away from their 2.9% to grab a 5.8%. And 5.8 is if you have really good credit. You're talking about 6s and 7s. When we talk about the 30-year average of the rates, and we talk about 7%, there was another piece of math in there. During that same 30-year window, we saw 16 and 17%. So finding the motivated is going to be really important. As you're getting started, I know you're looking for any human that wants to do business. Anytime you're wasting with an unmotivated person today could cause you to miss the opportunity with the motivated person this afternoon. So finding out where they stand and if they truly want to move forward. Because if they're showing up and saying, we want to go shopping right now, cool, I need you to talk to Brad Kelly. Oh, well, we're not that serious. There's a corner of your business they can sit in. But it's not in your car. It's not in your calendar today. If they want to start shopping, but they don't want to get pre-approved or show you proof of funds, that's not a thing then. I know I use a lot of analogies. If I'm talking to a friend and I know he's a hunter, I'm like, Ted, so you're telling me you want to head into the woods looking for a bear, but you don't want to bring any friggin' ammunition? That's not hunting, that's a death sentence, right? So we've got to be smart when we're talking to people because they think, and these are, again, I'll blame it on HGTV. Well, yeah, but they never show that on TV. I'm like, when do you get pre-approved? No, they don't show that on TV. That's friggin' boring. That's not the fun part. They just say Ted and Stacy are pre-approved for X or have whatever to spend. They don't even talk about the process. So we got to make sure that we know their motivation. Find out what it is and make sure it matches your calendar. I'm not gonna go out and look at properties this afternoon with somebody that just wants to look at properties and doesn't really know when they want to get started. No, thank you. Then we're gonna classify by able, ready, and willing. You'll notice that's out of order, right? It used to be ready, willing, and able. We moved able to the front during COVID. Do they have the ability? Can they execute a transaction? Are they ready? And most importantly, are they willing, right? But do they have the ability to do it? And that used to involve people that might have been upside down on the properties before. We don't see much of that now. It'll come back a little bit. But you don't see short sales the way we used to see short sales at all. That used to be a thing, a big thing. We're gonna get them qualified and then we'll do some recaps and get you guys out of here. Gary, in that book called Shift, says your number one job as a real estate agent is to find ways to get in the path of motivated buyers and sellers. Go to where the money's changing hands and get involved. And I know that sounds underhanded when you say it that way. Like, go be super smarmy, insert yourself into the deal. But when we run the math, if you grab your phone, and we talk about this all the time, grab your phone or your command, wherever you have the most humans in your life that you can contact, you take that number and you multiply it by 0.06. 6% of the American public will be near a transaction in the next 12 months. Doesn't mean Paul Dunn's moving, means Paul Dunn knows someone who's going to be moving. So when I tell people to run that 6% math against the numbers in their command, the pushback I get from veteran agents is, well, that doesn't make any sense, Tim. Because last year I had almost the same amount of people in my command, and I didn't have that many deals. Well, no, because you didn't invite yourself to the process. Nobody's transacting with me if they don't know I'm alive. Allison's here too, Paul, Derek. Everyone has a chance for the next 18 to 24 months. How many people have you told that you're in real estate?
No, a good number in the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
Just starting out.
We have to tell everyone in our life 7 times we're in real estate before they forget. So what myths do we hold about finding buyers and sellers? And you'll notice we're talking about myth understandings. What myths do we hold? When I say to you, we want to go find buyers and sellers. Talk to me about some of the things that are keeping you from doing that on a regular basis. And if you're in the room, grab the microphone. Paul, Allison, thoughts? What's keeping you from finding buyers and sellers? Anybody? No wrong answers.
A general lack of wanting to go out there and let people know you're in real estate 7 times a year.
So what's keeping you from wanting to do that?
Nothing keeping wanting, maybe just the personal motivation to make sure you're staying on top of it on a daily, weekly basis.
Okay.
Keeping current, as opposed to getting your train rolling and then just putting it on autopilot. Ultimately.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it's I don't know what to say, right? Anybody feel that way? Does everybody feel like they can battle any conversation in real estate right now? Are we ready for anything? Paul,
Yes,
just wave
Tim.
his hands a little
I
bit.
think so, Tim, because you've taught us so well.
Oh, hold on. Let me turn the volume up, Paul. Hang on. The volume's on, but it's just not up. Go ahead again, sir.
I was just saying, Tim, you've taught us really well how to deal with a lot of conversations. So I'm not intimidated at all.
I love that. I appreciate that. And again, Why are we ready? We know there's probably 5 to 7 objections we're gonna get. One thing that's only the only 2 things that are ever gonna change as you move through your career are the people in the property. Now, for some of you, you're gonna sell the same property 5, 6 times. But the emotion around the sale changes because the people change. Who was once your buyer is now your seller. I had this conversation like 3rd day of my freshman year with Kathy O'Rourke, great veteran agent out of Durham. And she's like, I bought and sold the same house 5 times, Tim. And it was friggin' different every time because the emotions around it changed. What have I always told you guys when somebody says to you or asks you a question you can't answer? Well, how do we respond? Feel felt found is good, but how do we, with the initial response?
That's a great question. Let me find the answer for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Allison. And again, this is all semantics. And some people don't care about that kind of stuff. I was an English major. I love semantics. Never say, I don't know. When you can say, great question, Mr. Lindsay. Let me look into that for you, as opposed to, I don't know, I'll find out. Which sentence would you like to shoot out of the mouth of the person that's going to assist you with the largest transaction in your life? Right? And then above and beyond that, just knowing that no matter how much you're prepared for the open house, somebody's going to ask you, hey, is there a Indian burial ground off the rear left pin of the property? Like in that moment, what do I want to say? No. Like, that's what I want to say. Hey, great question. Let me look into that for you. I text the lead agent, the person who knows about the property. They're probably going to text back. We're going to look into it for you. But we're never going to know all the answers to all the questions, ever. But we're in an environment with our 668 agents. Never mind the veteran agent relationships that we have. Some of our veteran agents that have gone to the beach that will still take a call from Nate. Because Nate could be like, oh, I'll pick on the great Sandy Dyka. She was a team leader for us years ago, phenomenal agent. When I say that, I don't mean Nate's dealt with it or anybody here's dealt with it. Somebody we have a relationship with has dealt with it. We'll be able to get the answer. And we don't really ever need to know the right thing to say. All we have to do is keep asking questions, right? We're on a fact-finding mission about our buyers and sellers. Do we think there's a lack of buyers out there? Not according to our numbers. We just don't have them all signed yet, right? But we have most of them signed. Are there a lack of active listings? Yes. And I had the great Mark Zoller on this morning on the Quick Start, and he talked about the lack of inventory. And I know what he meant, but you guys know how I feel about that statement. There's a ton of inventory. Every house in America is inventory. We just have to drag it to the end of the driveway and throw a price tag on it to make it an active listing. But there's an opportunity with every house in America. The problem is, the challenge is, our buyers only see what? They only see the active listings. If I go on Facebook Marketplace right now, can I see the stuff that somebody hasn't sold yet? The thing that hasn't been listed yet? You're going to put a pair of skis on later today. They're not there now. I don't know about them, right? So our consumers, we can't blame our consumers. We're like, how did you not know about the house that hasn't been listed yet, stupid? We can't say that to them. Especially if I'm standing here and I just had coffee with Mark Zoller and I know he has a listing coming. I know about the house that hasn't been listed yet. That's our superpower, right? But our buyers don't. How do buyers find their agents? Referral from friend, neighbor, or relative. So this is what I'm talking about when you need to make sure that your people know that you're alive, you're here to help, and you're looking for people to help. That's why when we call our friends, I'm not calling my friend Steve to see if he's buying, selling, or investing today. I'm calling him to find out who he knows that I should know, so he can refer me to his friend. Used agent previously for a transaction. Look at the number drop. 13%. You know why that happens? 87% of Americans say they would use the agent they used last time. Only 13% do. Guess whose fault that is? Yeah, because we suck at what we do. which is so ironic. We have these big personalities. I'm going to be the greatest agent on planet America. I'm going to sign your baby. I'm going to be at all the golf tournaments. I'm going to be a big fat loudmouth. But then when it really gets down to what I'm supposed to do to win the business, I'm probably going to be at lunch. We're so bad at what we do. That number is horrifying. Because they would have used you and you didn't stay in touch. And you apparently so ineffective, they removed you from their phone. Or you were so ineffective, they forgot your name. You're probably in their phone. They just can't remember whether it was Tim, Ted, or Todd. I don't know. He was just a loudmouth. He did a great job. I'd love to use him again. But he didn't leave that much of an impression. And clearly, he hasn't reached out to us in the last 5 to 7 years. So if he doesn't care, why should I care? And then the proximity effect happened. They're talking to their friend at the office. Oh my God, my daughter just bought a condo. Great agent. His name Pedro Mech. Yeah, ornery little bastard, but yeah, nice guy. Did a great job, right? Yeah. And now Pedro's working with your buyer because you're home ironing your pajama pants because you didn't want to bother anybody. We should just honestly lay in traffic some days, guys. We got to be better about that. That number should scare the hell out of everyone. And that's not about making sure you buy a billboard. That's not about getting a TV commercial. That's about staying in touch with people. And we talked about this last week. When they leave the closing table, then, oh, that's my client for life. No, it's not, Barbara. They just left. There's no signed contracts. The contract that made them your client has been executed and closed. They're a civilian again. In between every transaction, and you might get to the end of time and be like, oh, I worked with Lindsay's 15 times. They were a client for life because you made me consistently become your client again. Not because I was locked into a long-term deal. This is not a big poppy contract, right? Which he didn't even finish, right? Inquired about a property they saw online, 7%, website, 7%. I'm not picking on websites, but if you're in your freshman year and you're waiting for the right shade of blue in the background on your buyer agency page, before you call anybody, my website's not ready yet, Tim. Stop it. Stop it. Because the misconception that, well, you got to have a great online presence. I'm not saying don't. It's where people go. It's where everyone is right now. Everyone's holding a 4K camera in their hand and the internet in their hand at all times. And they occasionally make phone calls with that same thing, which is ironically we call phones, right? So do people start their search online? Sure. Buyers do, and I know we're talking about buyers right now. Buyers start their search online because they start looking for the property and see if the market bears what they're looking for. I don't necessarily, and I certainly didn't, and my wife and I moved 1,000 years ago. We moved in November 2009. And when we started our search, my wife said, Dork, she went down and drilled down a ton. We knew we needed a good school system for our youngest, Cameron, because he has autism and diabetes. It was going to be an IEP plus medical plus like, you know, Hulu plus no commercials. We needed everything, right? So my wife did a super good job dorking out and getting the towns we wanted. So we came to Nate with a pretty curated list, but I went to Nate. Why? Because Nate was the agent that I knew and loved and trusted. And we had a previous relationship when we worked in radio, and I knew a lot of other agents, but Nate Dickey was the friggin' mayor, right? If you ever come in my office, I've got a little Funko Pop of Mayor McCheese. That's his nickname, because he's Mayor McCheese, because he knows everybody. You cannot go out in the wild with Nathan Dickey. You couldn't walk from our building to his car. He'll run to 4 people he knows, right? And that's the kind of influence you want. That's because everyone knows who he is, what he does, what he's built, and what he's looking for. You know, people want to invest. They know Nate Dickey. They're calling Nate. Should I buy this? Have you seen this? I want to do this. Like, can you infect your population with that same thing? That's our job. For sale and open house signs. Well, okay. You have to be in the industry to get that though, right? And it's a lower number. Referral from another agent, that we can blame each other for. I think a lot of agents don't do enough cross-pollination. Because in a few years, if you're in your freshman year of real estate, in a few years, you're going to come to me like, so Tim, I ran the math. I've got 8,000 people on my phone, but half of them are real estate agents. Cool. Do they still know you're alive? Have you talked to them since COVID? You know how many agents in our ecosystem were in the business before COVID, are still in the business, but agents they know aren't anymore? Because they didn't medically, professionally, financially, emotionally, psychologically survive COVID. That could be a run of phone calls. Hey, Steve, it's Tim Lindsay. I'm so sorry it's been so long. I was thinking about you today. We had a few showings probably back in 2018. How's your business doing? How you doing on the other side of COVID? Oh, dude, I'm out. I'm at Kohl's folding t-shirts. Oh, really? Like, or oh shit, you're still doing it. And it's funny because when gas prices went up, that was fun, you know. And I was saying to you guys, I'm like, you might be shrinking your service, your circle of service, because you don't want to drive that far. Because it was happening when we still had the velocity of the market. But now what's happening? You have to search deeper and wider for deals. So your circle of service is spread out again. Some people might not be willing to do that. So you call your friend that works over at the Metropolitan office, same company, different ownership. And you're talking to somebody over there and like, yeah, I'd head over to Portsmouth, no friggin' problem. But, you know, gas is starting to creep up. True story, not a political statement. Gas is starting to creep up. Yeah, and I'm trying to play golf. Can't have both. You can drive miles or you can drive miles, but you can't drive both, right? So in the grand scheme of things, making those phone calls, why aren't we doing that? Or they visited an open house, and this is buried at the bottom. This is why page 71 in Shift is so freaking important. The 7th level open house. Are you doing something that sets you apart? Because when I say open house, and I know I say this all the time, when I say open house, I see 3 balloons, 4 stale cookies. Super friggin' just predictable. I'm gonna go inside, not all the lights are on. The agent is hunched over the kitchen island, candy crushing or tendering. There's no paperwork. Yeah, the house sort of smells like death, not really sure, it's unfurnished. They've done nothing to make it extraordinary. Or did they listen to their coach that says this all the time? And this only works, I agree, this only works on your first open house. My point being though, Your Honor, is if you're having your 15th open house, you don't need a 16th open house, you need to fire your sellers, or you need it'll be on the quiz later, a price improvement. Because when your clients come to you and they're like, hey, Timmy, I think we need another open house. Okay, but if we do another open house, we're just going to tell the universe that we're still priced improperly, Mr. Lindsay. If you're willing to make a price improvement like we discussed when we first sat down, I'd be happy to do another open house. Fascinating, right? So why are we not on that first open house? If you put a listing in this Thursday and you're not doing any private showings until Saturday when you do the open house, a lot of agents do that, super smart. Why not call it a property premiere? Why not call it a listing launch? Just to set yourself apart, because the consumers don't realize when they're marching in their board shorts and flip-flops with their $19 latte, that when they start to see how you function as opposed to other open houses and other agents they've met, they're subconsciously deciding whether they're going to hire you or not. Not to mention half the people that go into that open house probably have something to sell. But you'll never find out if you don't look up from your phone. And you're just swiping left anyway, right? Ugly, ugly, ugly. Oh, he's cute. Well, whatever. I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. But if you're not doing a 7th level open house or some form of that, that's why that number is so low. Because we're not using it. We're not conceptualizing. I get to sit inside of one of my pieces of marketing and continue to prospect, right? Because we're supposed to be prospecting based, marketing enhanced. And you can use both of those sharp swords on a Saturday morning. And yet we get 3 balloons, 4 stale cookies, and we sit on our phone. Go ahead.
I was up in the Dover office as never having done an open house
Sure.
myself yet. I
Yep.
was having a conversation with gentleman Dave up there who's just coming back from one.
Yep.
And he was saying his new strategy was 2 days of coming to market, Wednesday, Thursday, private showings only on Friday, and then Saturday was a 2-hour open house. At that point, I thought that was a really good way to kind of build enthusiasm
Sure.
creating exclusivity
Yep.
and then being able to, he said basically at that point, deals would come in on Sunday or
Yeah.
offers. and then
Absolutely.
Monday they would be hopefully signing.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people got in their feels during COVID and they're like, oh, my marketing sold the house. No, COVID sold the house. And I mean, the market that we created during COVID sold the house. Is marketing important? Sure. If your marketing sold the house then, that same phenomenal marketing that attracted all the eyeballs to your one listing during COVID that's not drawing the same amount of eyeballs to list with you after COVID, then maybe it wasn't your marketing, right? And again, I like that mindset. I'd steer you to go look at, I forget his name for the life of me. He's out in San Diego. If you look up on Google, the KW 10-day blitz, this guy in San Diego basically had a history of success so he could get away with this by telling his clients, Mr. and Mrs. Lindsay, we're going to take your listing. You guys are ballpark based on what we have, based on the analytics. You guys are ballpark probably 910. We're going to go on at 895. He was going on at or below, just create a feeding frenzy. That information's already out there. It would go into the MLS out in California on Thursday. They would apologize on Friday that they weren't doing any private showings, but they're having a thing on Saturday. Saturday, they had everybody in, maybe it was even Sunday. They had the general public in on Sunday. And they had a whole bunch of people leave offers. They would obviously say, we're going to present these to the sellers, but they're not making any decisions right now. Wednesday, he would drag it out even more. They didn't always do the two-step, but for the most part they did. Wednesday, he was inviting all the brokers. And he was making sure that they all knew just in case they missed it. And then he'd do a twilight tasting with like shrimp the size of a baby's arm, champagne, get everybody else in, get some more offers invariably. And he would let everybody know that his sellers would be making a decision on Friday. And within 10 days. And it would net up every freaking time. They're closing at 940, 950. People punching each other in the face in the driveway. But he had the history of success where he could tell people, we're going to list under, and here's all the families it's worked for already. So Mr. Lindsay, unless you don't want to net 40, 50, 60,000 over where you think you should be listed, we're going to start at 895 just to create the feeding frenzy, the cage match, right? The auction effect, as we call it. So all of our buyers, how sellers found their agents. And that's wrong. That should be all sellers. I want to call Gary, be like, did you realize you sent the slide out and it's broken? You're in a rush, Gary. Slow down. So referral 39%. Used agent previously for a transaction. So the sellers, now this is important, right? Because this could be people that bought and now they're going to sell. It only drops a little bit for first-time sellers. And that's another thing I would invite you guys to think about. Just putting a different spin on stuff. People always, what do you always hear? I'm going to do a blah, blah seminar. First-time home buyer seminar. I'm going to challenge you guys to think differently. What if you called it a first-time home seller seminar? And here's why. First-time home buyer, sure. We had somebody who did these consistently. He was on a very successful team that does a lot of business with 2 decimal points in it. And he was doing a great job, no judgment there. The team's average price point was, as you can imagine, pretty extraordinary, hovering in the 7s and 8s. His average price point, because he was focused on first-time home buyers, was $174,000. So I'm not judging the price point. Everyone needs a home, and his willingness to serve everybody is great. But as soon as you move it to first-time home seller, how does that change the conversation? Now I get to bring everybody in my ecosystem, all my allied resources come in. And I think the limiting belief is people will be like, well, no, Timmy, listen, I'm going to educate my sellers when I get to the kitchen table. Oh, you presume you're getting to the kitchen table. Like, what if we start the gateway drug of just showing them what we do and start justifying our 6 apples immediately? And what can also live inside a first-time home seller seminar? First-time home buyers can be there too. It's like your 201 class, sophomore year, right? Like there was a prerequisite. The prerequisite is the buyer. The buyer can come. You can invite everybody to this. And when somebody's like, well, we haven't even bought a house yet, Tim, we're not a first-time home seller. Well, the reason I'm calling Mr. Lindsay is we teach all of it in this series of classes. I want you to meet my team. Whenever you're ready to buy your first house, you'll be well educated. And I ultimately would love to win the opportunity to sell your house when you guys are looking to move on. And I think if we compartmentalize the buyer conversation inside of the seller conversation, we get to talk about everybody. Our photographer, our stager. Nobody's going to feel like, oh, I'm missing, or that's over my head, or we're not ready to sell yet. We want to buy. You just make it clear. But I think you start advertising it with just different language. First time home seller seminar. Because people don't realize what they have to do to get ready. And if you start to educate them and show them your team, and it doesn't need to be expensive, it doesn't need to be once a week, it's once a month. But if then my home inspector is going to get a spin, my stager is going to get a spin, everybody sort of gets highlighted, everybody's welcome to be there all the time. And it's going to get, you know, the Hors d'oeuvres and the cocktainis are going to get paid for by the people in the room, not you. And you just keep doing it once a month or whatever the frequency is. But get away from first-time home buyer. If you're doing first-time home buyer and it's working for you, Godspeed. I'm just asking you to think differently and elevate it a little bit. Personal contact by an agent, 4%, 3%, 4%. I mean, the numbers drop off. After referral and after past client, the numbers just drop off. So should we be asking for referrals? Yes or yes? And should we be making sure that we stay in contact with people that we were at a closing table once with? The amount of business that gets orphaned at the closing table is astronomical. Embarrassing, actually. And it certainly happens more frequently with our buyers. First-time home buyer at the closing table, everything's signed, I got my check, I thank the Joneses, and I'm out the door. They're never going to hear from me again. For a lot of buyers agents. It's terrible. And I'll remind everybody, and I say this all the time, if you are watching that happen as the listing agent, what did we say earlier? As soon as that contract is executed, as soon as the deal's closed, right? Nobody's anybody's client anymore. And in the next few days, when the Lindsays get a letter from Allison that says, hey, Mr. Lindsay, it was so great working with you and Paul. Paul's a wonderful agent. Just wanted to thank you again for being part of, you know, my team's business. We're so excited to work with you guys. If you have any questions about the property, she's politely reminding me she had the listing. She attracted me and Paul and my wife to the listing. Not picking on Paul as a buyer's agent, but if Paul walked away and left me with nothing. I haven't heard from Paul. I'm picking on Paul now. I love you, Paul. And I'm never going to hear from Paul again. But Allison sent me that letter. You know, that she's not crossing a sign anymore. The deal's over, right? Nobody is anybody's client anymore. Oh, they're my client for life. Because we get that all the time. I got Dr. Westcott on right now. I know he deals with these phone calls all the time. We'll have an agent that joins us. I'll pick a fictitious zip code. We'll have an agent that joins us in the Lindsay, New Hampshire area. And they decide they're going to go to start to put out hard mailers, postcards once a month around Westcott Pond in Lindsay, New Hampshire. And all of a sudden their phone rings. Hey, Tim. Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi, this is John. We haven't met yet. And I just wanted to clear something up. Westcott Pond and Lindsay, that's mine. Like there's not a font big enough for Nate. And Nate certainly would not type this out, but I'm just visualizing how big the F off would be from any member of leadership in our company. It's not a thing. You can't tell me that I can't market to the pond. You sent a credit card. Yeah, exactly. You sent a mailer to back in 1938. You sent the newsletter out in 1938. Now it's your pond? Nope. Nope. So we have to stay in touch. And those two top panels right there, all the single digit stuff. Look at the top. Referrals. And then people that worked with you in the past. So much money right there. What have we heard? Questions, comments, concerns? How's your thinking changed a little bit about what we just talked about? Oh, speaking of. I was just, can you come in and justify what I just said real quick? So I was just joking about, I love that he shows up like Darth Vader. It's awesome. We were just joking about the fact that I just got started in real estate. I sent out a hard mailer to Dickey Pond in Lindsay, New Hampshire. And a veteran agent gives me a phone call and says, you can't do that. That's my pond.
Oh, that's not true.
I didn't say the words, but I said they might respond differently than
Yeah, no, you can market anywhere you want. That's
the whole state. Yeah. Yeah, we're
anywhere you
licensed
want.
in the whole state.
Anywhere you have a license, you can, that doesn't eliminate you from marketing into that area.
Hmm.
A lot of agents will market into areas on top of other agents. It's fine. Consistency wins, frequency wins.
Yes.
So, the more regular mail you send, we have agents now breaking into markets in the Lakes region that have been, one agent from another companies for years and years and years, and people are just breaking in and taking over. But they do that through consistency, and consistency is at least like 33 touches in a year. So that's a lot of mailers, So if you're going to do mailers, you have to be consistent about it, and you have
At
to,
least
you,
once
you
a
have to, you got to commit to a year, because it's about a 1% return. 3% would be like amazing if you got a 3% return on your mailer, but like 1% is pretty standard, and it doesn't really kick in until like 6 to 10 months. So just be prepared for that. One mailer out that says, "Oh, I just sold this house," and then never sending another one gets you nothing.
Yes.
But like, that's how you're building your database. I just sold this house. I'm gonna send something every month to this market to tell them about the market, to this set of addresses, then that will help you. So.
An agent might mathematically own a
Right.
town, but they don't actually own the town.
Correct.
Okay. I love that you popped. I just said how you feel about that. Yes. Amen. Thanks, Dad. Love it.
The consistency on the 33 touches staying current post deal.
Yeah.
Always recommended to keep that cycle no matter what. Obviously don't want to be slacking off, just talking about, nobody's anybody's, client after the deal is finished.
Sure.
Continue that 33 touches, or is it a lighter touch, or is it just going headstrong into that and into the.
I think once somebody becomes transactional with you, and Melissa could certainly speak to this. I think when somebody becomes transactional with you, I'm gonna pause their 36 connect, because in the grand scheme of things, now I'm transactional with them. That's my point of contact. When they're done, based on conversations you may have had, or we might have to induce the conversation when they're done, maybe part of your closing gift or somewhere during leaving one of the showings, or when they've made their offer, whatever, not to cloud their brain with other things, but as soon as the transaction's over, I'm gonna give them a copy of the Blue Book. Millionaire real estate investor. Like, hey, what do you think your next thought is? Like something you want to cash flow, that both graduates of UNH, they're just about to have their little kid. Do you buy something over in Durham that you can cash flow? And then if the kid follows in mom and dad's footsteps and goes, now they have a place to live. And then when the kids are done, they can keep it and cash flow it. If there's 4 rooms, you rent it to the hockey team. When they go there, it's them and 3 friends. And the cash flow they're getting from their 3 friends' rent, which isn't going to them, it's going to you, goes towards their tuition, right? There's so many different ideas. So I think you're going to change it based on, I wouldn't keep the same thing going. That would come across to me as tone deaf. But I'm going to start to say, what is your next step? Because you're going to start to change the relationship. Once they bought their first house with you, now you have them start to switch their thinking to, never mind the brick and mortar of a house. Now, where are we going to invest? How are we going to build wealth? And how can I be that person for you? So they don't just think about you as buy or sell. Buy, sell, invest, right? That makes sense?
Yeah.
I would definitely change it.
Yeah.
We have so many tools that we can change little nuances that we don't sound tone deaf. And you just build that. What does it look like? What does somebody start to get after we close? What is my post-close? Stay in touch. When are you investing? When are we going out for drinks, right? Whatever.
We did that UNH transition just like you did, and I squandered it and sold out early because I didn't know enough about.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
Not that we did poorly, I just could have been in a
Jeez,
better place today.
can we take a break? I want to go grab a lottery ticket. I mentioned Nathan, he shows up like a magic trick. It's crazy. Yes, yeah, we're gonna start to build that up. So we want to classify by able, ready, and willing. Gary and the MREA focus becomes increasingly possible in direct proportion to how clear you are about what you want, when you want it, and what you must do to get it. What you want, when you want it, and what we must do to get it. We're going to come from curiosity, right? We always used to say ready, willing, and able, but we want to talk about able really being the question we want to qualify with them. Classify opportunities. A, B, and C. When I was selling, I would say A means they're ready to go. We're meeting at the property today. B, I would call my back burner people. And really that still falls on me. I'm responsible for moving them into A. And back burner, they're probably one more question away from moving to A. And C for me, I would call credit. Just in my head. And those are my credit people. They got to fix something in their life to get into transaction. And they all deserve conversations. You run into somebody tomorrow who just went bankrupt. They're 7 or 8 years out. Brad Kelly's got somebody that they can work with to fix their credit. Maybe they can do it expeditiously. I'm asking everyone in the room, would you like business in 2030? Yes. In 7 years, my business would like another buyer seller. So behave that way and work with your credit people. They're able, ready, and willing to do business in the next 2 weeks. So they're immediate. The next 2 months, those are your Bs, and you could move them up probably by asking better questions and make them an A. And then C, they're 2 months out. And that could be way out. How do we qualify people? Why should we qualify? Well, it's a win-win. Our job is to save our clients time and money. Our job is to save your family time and money. We joined real estate for 2 reasons. Most of us, I would argue. Tim, I would like to make more money and get home faster. One of the best memes I saw in the last month or so, it's a cat behind the wheel. Paws wrapped around the steering wheel, and it says, get out of my way, I'm late for home. I love that. I want that mentality for all of us. If you've ever read the 5 Regrets of the Dying, one of the things in that book is, the person wrote it, I forget who wrote that book. The person who wrote it worked in a hospice, and not a single person said, I wish I spent more time at the office. Yeah, so let's get the hell out of here as fast as we can. And we earn that right when we do what we're supposed to do before lunch. Win the morning, win the day. Talk to enough humans, have enough conversations, move the needle, understand they're going to be granular. You're not going to leave every day at lunch to go get your sandwich and be like, oh, booked another kitchen table. Did you have a conversation with somebody who needs your help, right? Michael Mayer, M-A-H-E-R, the 7 levels of communication. Today, somewhere in my city, someone is looking for help and it's my job to find them. How do I save time and money for me and my clients? And document my conversations. Make sure you're doing the intake sheet. We're going to look at those in a second. Follow a checklist. You have a process. Why do things get jammed up? Because we don't have a process. We don't haphazardly work with our clients. They're entrusting us with the biggest transaction of their life. And abide by fair housing regulations. You guys studied that in licensing class. The language we're supposed to use. You'll notice I always say them and their loved ones. I don't say families because we can't say families. A lot of things that we can't say that we're going to get jammed up on. Even the newest we can't say. We have to say primary bedroom. We can't say master bedroom. There's a whole bunch of things We have to clean up our language and make sure that we're not saying the wrong things.
Quick question about
Yes, sir.
the C buyers.
Yeah.
I used to run a cafe, so a bunch of young kids.
Yep.
I have now, they're getting into their late twenties, still in my sphere of communication.
Yep.
Good idea to bring them to a lender just for initial conversation, see where they need to go. They've talked about wanting to buy, but no,
Yeah, 4,000%.
yeah,
Yep.
just bring them up, get them
Yep.
rolling in the process. And
Well, even,
Yeah.
even if you knew that you had enough of them, right? You got a handful of kids and you're just like, hey, Brad, if I promised you that I could put 7 or 8, 5 or 6 people in the Shark Tank next Wednesday at 11 o'clock, could you give us 30 minutes? And just sort of gateway drug these kids a little bit so they get to meet you, find out how super chill Brad is. And then like, here's what we need to know to get started. And there's no harm in looking. You know, they're not gonna get a phone call. Hey, there was a hard inquiry on your credit, you know, like, and you know, and like the kids you're talking about, right? Unless they've already crushed their credit. You know, that kind of a conversation, or at least Brad putting the math in front of them. One of the biggest misconceptions is people don't think they have the power to buy. And they do. Well, no, but I wanted my friend pulled off, like, yeah, pulled off. That's the key and operative term, right? During COVID. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so let's walk this back, Stacy. You're in your parents' basement. Cool. Rent's awesome, I think. The fridge is always full, and you roll laundry anytime you want. So do you need a 2-car garage and a 4-bedroom colonial? Or you just want out of your parents' house, right? And if we can do that, and the money you'll pay for rent is still less than the stress of living in your parents' basement, for everybody involved, does that make sense? Because this is the thing, and he didn't say it because we didn't go down this road, but like Nate would say, you'll hear me say, you'll hear all of us say, we've got to get our clients to the table with cards in their hand. We're going to get to a point where kids are going to show up and be like, oh, I can't, there's not even room at the table anymore. Because we're going to become a renter's nation. There's big, and here comes my tinfoil helmet. There's big companies buying up housing all over our country. And they're never going to relinquish it. They're just going to keep renting. And we don't have the housing stock here to support what we need to. So people just got to get in and you got to figure out what makes sense, because the appreciation is always going to be there. And they're going to be able to at least roll into the next thing. And it might be gradual, but it's better than being a renter. So that's the conversation. So I'd run that past Brad. What does that look like? Or what's the next logical class for them to come to?
Being dramatic, you don't want to scare them.
Yeah, I'd leave the Vanguard and the BlackRock stuff out of it. Those are the big companies I'm talking about. And if you know, you know, look at the top of NASDAQ and Dow, they own everything. It's just, well, Stacy, I guess what's the harm in you sitting with Brad and finding out where you stand, what you could do? At the very least, let's presume that based on the immaturity of your credit, a word people don't want to hear, but immaturity is better than broken. Yeah, based on the infancy of your credit, right? What if we at least know what you need to do to start to wake that up? You know? And if we put a pathway in front of you that shows you the time frame of when you get started, would that be a problem? No. Okay. Well, there's no harm, no foul in talking to Brad, asking questions. He's been our in-house lender since 1932. Right? Nate's been working with him forever, right? I don't know why anybody wouldn't trust him. And I'm not steering you guys to Brad. I said with love, I think if you never work with Brad during your entire career, write this down, it'll be on the quiz letter, you're an idiot. Because he's a phenomenal guy with a great team. If you have a local lender, when I say Bank of America, they're right on the corner, they're not local. They're in North Carolina, and they don't care about you or your client. You need a local lender. He would tell this story, but he left. You need a local lender, you can drive to their office and kick them in the face. Nathan had a guy that was jamming him up, one of his clients up, and he went and he parked and he sat in the waiting room. Woman's like, oh, Mr. Dickey, he's out for the day. Okay, he knew his car was in the, yeah, waited him out. Guy finally came out of his office at 5:15. Like you want to be able to track somebody down. And Brad's phenomenal. So, I mean, is there any harm, Stacy, in finding out where you stand? Let's find out what the runway looks like. If you could buy something yesterday, would that be a problem? No, that'd be super cool. We might find that out. If you have to do some things to get yourself ready to buy in 6 months or a year, is that okay? So what's holding you back? I don't know, just I guess not knowing. That's why we're going to talk to Brad.
I just had that same conversation with one of my previous employees the other day.
Mhm.
He's just turning 30. Great kid, lives at home. Has been doing well for himself, but just started his own landscape business.
Mhm.
And immediately his feedback was, oh, I can't buy right now.
Yeah.
I'm not qualified.
Yeah,
I'm not
they're-
in
that-
process, but he's been saving money, living at home. He's
Yep.
got good credit at this point. He's in good standing. So we had a good conversation.
Most of our consumers are battling a set of circumstances they've created in their own mind. And we have to work through those by asking questions. So here's your buyer lead sheet. I mean, it's pretty basic, but you'd be fascinated, the people that sit and do uptime calls and they don't write any of this down. Name, email, address. Anyone else who's going to be moving with them? Best way to get in touch, what are the best times? And the first question, are you working with anybody? Anybody else buying the home with you? Other decision makers, never mind loved ones moving with them. Is anybody else going to be part of the contract? Who will be living there? How long you been looking? Why? We talked about these. These are the questions, right? It's who, what, where, why, when, how. Like we're writing an article. Like we're a journalist, investigative reporter. We talked about the 36 touch. And again, and you put these on people that are further out, right? Because if somebody wants to go, they're going to go. Your B's and your C's should be on a 36 Connect. 19 to Connect is really for people that we haven't met yet. Never going to lie to you guys. I never used a 19 to Connect. It used to be called a 30. It was a 33 touch. That's why you heard Nate say that. It was 33 touch in E-Edge for 1,000 years. Now it's 36 to Connect. Best part of that, 9 touches a quarter. Look at the top, only one phone call. Every 3 months, one phone. Can you figure that out? If you can't make one phone call to each person once every 90 days, just to save you all the time and aggravation, shit, Nate will drive you home now. Like you got to get out of your own way at that point. And I know we don't love phone calls, but when you sit back and do the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon at the end of your career and you figure out how most of your, not all, most of your transactions started, I bet it's going to be voice to voice. The best version of you shows up when they can hear your voice, the words you're choosing, and hear the tonality in which you're delivering those words. 26 bi-weekly touches. It's got 2 events. I would argue as you get going, get 4 events going. Then you get something every 90 days that you're calling around. It goes from lead generation to lead invitation. Your family and friends know every time the phone rings and I look down and see Tim, it's probably another event. He doesn't need to bring up real estate. We're going to bring up real estate when real estate is part of our life. Absent that, he just keeps showing up as a human in the gap. People only buy every 5 to 7 years. You're just gonna pause for 5 years at a time and then assume they're gonna call you. Hey Tim, glad I got a hold of you. Yeah, Stacy and I getting ready to move. She's pregnant. Hey, congratulations. Yeah, you know what? And you know why we thought of you immediately? Because you've been a terrible person for 6 years. Haven't reached out once. But I said, you know what? That salesy, smarmy son of a bitch deserves my money. So I felt like I should call you. That's never going to happen, ever. What will happen is you're going to see somebody else working with them. And they'll be so mad they forgot about you. When your entire friggin' role in this industry is to be unforgettable. By simply connecting with them on a regular basis. Not even always you. The 4 phone calls, you got to make those. The 26 touches, pre-built, sent out by a computer. The events, you don't have to put them together. You have to be part of them. Agents will start to build their businesses and have their own events. Anybody go to the post-holiday party? Is anybody at the post-holiday party in January that Nate threw? That's Nate's biggest event. We do a post-holiday party every year to celebrate the numbers from the year before. We've done boat cruises, we've done lobster bakes. I know we've got some cocktail hours coming up. Nate has to remind you guys why you're in relationship with him. Because you all know, you can wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm out. I'm out, going to Old Smell Banker. Like the lobby, it smells like hopelessness. Want to spend some more time over there. Just kidding. Sounds great. Sounds great. From what I hear, it's great. And then your sellers. Same info at the top. Notice at the very top, when are we getting together? How did you hear about me? Why are you moving? What's motivating you to move? What's the time frame? If we sell your home in the next 30 days, would that be a problem, Mr. Lindsay? They might say yes, because they don't think you can do it. They weren't ready to move that quickly. What would happen if your home didn't sell? How much do you want to list for? That's always a fascinating question. How much do you owe? Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't. Going to be sending you a pre-listing packet. Please take a few minutes to review everything before we meet, because all the facts are in there, FAQs, frequently asked questions. The great Timmy Heil from Southwest Market Center #1 in Austin, Texas, said if your pre-listing packet is robust enough, you should just show up with a sharp crayon, start signing paperwork, because all the questions have been answered. You may only have to answer questions about you at that point, not really the process, because they're still on a fact-finding mission and they're well within their rights to be curious. But we shouldn't be wasting time at the kitchen table talking about stuff that we could have answered in a pre-listing packet. Do you have any other questions before we meet? Will all the decision makers be present when we're there? Because otherwise, don't have the meeting. Everyone needs to be there because we're signing paperwork. I know you look at that and you read through those questions, you're like, yeah, sure, those are all general. But if that sheet's not in front of you, they're not matter of fact. You forget most of them. Am I going the wrong way? There we go. So we talk about this all the time. The fortunes in the follow-up, the millions are in the follow-through, right? So if somebody does buy a property from you or through you, what are your next conversations? And this is where we get in our own heads, because maybe there's some stuff about the house that you're like, oh God, that's going to be a repair point for them coming soon. If I call them, and you run the risk all the time with anybody you call a client that you worked with to buy a home. Hey, Mr. Lindsay, glad I caught you. Been thinking about you. How's the house? This could turn into 35 minutes of like asking your grandmother how her hip is, right? This could go on forever. But we got to ask. We have to be honest when we ask. Now, I'm not just asking to have them rattle off X, Y, and Z, and then, because then what if they do have an issue and they need your help? And a lot of our buyers will start to push blame onto you. Well, I wish we knew about that. And we are absolutely incapable of managing expectations that we never set. So when we're buying that house, I'm reminding the Lindsays, hey, the washer and the dryer is staying. And a lot of sellers do this, but don't forget that's personal property. And you're buying it today. Because I had this happen with a buyer. Probably my last summer I was selling. 2 weeks after they bought the house, I get the phone call. Dryer's not working. I'm like, okay. I said, I Stratford Appliance. So I come telling them who to call. And they're like, well, is there any recourse on this? I'm like, well, ultimately, no. It's personal property that transferred with the house. You guys own it now. And it stopped working. Because a lot of home inspectors, and I don't know where they stand now, a lot of home inspectors, a lot of people just like, can we run the dishwasher and all that stuff? And I get that. And you'd think the dishwasher and all that kind of stuff The fridge, even the fridge. When you're going through, if it's a Wolf or a Sub-Zero, don't just write down. We would always write down the property as viewed on June 35th, 2038, right? I can't just write kitchen, stainless steel fridge. I'm gonna write the friggin' model number of the Sub-Zero, because you know what will happen? I think this happened to JV, ask her, she'll love to tell you the story. There was a stainless steel fridge. It belonged in the dorm room of a sophomore at State University. It was about, it's like the size of a member of the Lollipop Guild, But you wrote stainless steel fridge. So we got to be hyper clear about that stuff. And I would just say, so she calls, dryer's not working. I'm like, well, I said Stratford Appliance is right down the road. Ironically, they're in Somersworth. It is right down the road. She wasn't happy with that response. And I think she was waiting for us to write a check. I don't know what she was waiting for. Still talked to her. It was fine. And I was able to, because we did, I was able to say, hey, Stacy, remember during inspections when I reminded you guys, as soon as you grab the keys, as soon as everything's filed, any of the personal property that's getting left, they left a tractor too. The old people were going away to play golf and die. I said, all this stuff, like, it's working right now. And even with the stuff that's like permanent, like the roof has a 25-year life design. And you're standing in the front yard looking at a roof that's in its 27th year, and it looks like a skateboard ramp that needs to be mowed. Well, we knew that, right? And the seller also knew that. And the seller also said they got some local quotes and factored the roofing quote into their price. And you said you were okay with that. Now that you know that the roof needs to be mowed, let's hire somebody to mow it, or let's get it re-roofed. But we agreed to all of this, right? And that's why I love that quote from John Duffy, who is the reason that Nathan started this company here in the first place. He was at a dinner with us summer of 14, and he said, don't forget, we work with our clients until the contract is written. And then once the contract is written, we work with our clients to support the contract. So we work as agents to support our clients until the contract is written. Once the contract is written, we work with our clients to support the contract. And what I mean by that is the paper is white, the ink is black, there are no nuances. So when the dryer dies, we got to be okay with that. They have to be okay with that, and we have to speak to it. So our follow-up before and after the sale, what does that look like? And this is just about putting people on a plan. Whether you're using Brivity or Command or anything, you can just put in your next action item, especially if you make a 36 Connect to stay in touch with them after the transaction or before the transaction. Things are happening for you. We don't really have to worry about, do I need to remember to follow up? We just have to do the thing. Because unless it's an action that Command is going to take on your behalf, we have to do it. But looking at that 36 Connect, there weren't many things that we had to do. Go to events and make some phone calls. Everything else can be automated. And if you're doing 136 Connect for everyone that you want to eventually win the business of, how long does that take to go in and make sure that all those working parts are cleaned up? Not that long. There's some in there that are curated really well. You can just steal theirs. If you go into Command and look at 36 Connect, just like when you're buying something on Amazon, you can see how many people have used it and how many stars it has. Go grab the one that kicks ass. I've heard so much about this golden letter, Tim. Where do I get a golden letter? If you ever listen to James Shaw in the morning at 8 o'clock, it's in the link in the morning news. He always jokes because everybody's like, where's the golden letter? It's on his Facebook page. The golden letter is simply a letter you send out to everybody that you don't know looking for more active listings. All this stuff is automated. Then we get into conversation with them. And we need to convert them. And Zoe's big on this. What is your conversion rate? If we're having a ton of phone calls during Fight Club, if we're doing a ton of activities, but we're not getting to appointments, what questions are we not asking? Or what questions are we not making clear? Because at some point during your conversation with everybody, there's going to be a chance where they at least ask about real estate. And we can ask for an opportunity to serve the people they know and love and trust. But we have to do the important thing. Ask. I don't want to come across as salesy. Don't. They're going to ask you about work. You're going to start getting this in the next 18 to 24 months. Both of you in the room, everybody online. Most of the people in your life still think you're doing what you did. And when they bring that up, how's work? Glad you asked. Got my license. I'm at Keller Williams. Based on my plan for the balance of the year, I want to help 18 more families. Don't say 18 families, say 18 more families. Who do you know that I should know? Who do you know that we can help? That's not salesy. That's coming from a servant's heart. That's empowering them to help you. That goes back to the top bullet point. Where do most buyers and sellers find their person? Through referrals. Do we want new business, return business, or referral business? Yes. Yes. All three layers. And then how do we stay top of mind? This is where marketing comes in, right? Because 90% of a 36 Connect is going to be marketing. It's stuff that's going out on your behalf while you're doing other things. To have marketing out there in general helps, because absent a relationship with you, all people have is your reputation. If they've never heard of you, that's not bad. But what if they have? How much more endeared to you are they when they finally meet you? They probably have less questions. I call it the Bradley Cooper effect. Anybody in Hollywood, a fan runs into them, and yes, I use the word fan because that will happen to you over time. People are going to run into some of our top agents for the first time, and there's like a fangirl moment. Everybody thinks they know Bradley Cooper because they've watched his movies, heard his voice, think they understand his idiosyncrasies. They're in love with him. I don't know. Then all he has to do is just show up. They don't know of you at all. How are they finding out about you? Are they getting referred to you by their friends because you help them? So what do you have going on for marketing? Do you have anything going on for marketing? What are people doing for marketing right now? It's passive. It's running in the background. It's consistent. Paul, Allison, anybody? You have a white light on the speaker in front of you? Want to make sure. The white or red? White, okay, good. Paul, go ahead.
I don't
Paul,
have
sorry.
anything.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, I'm just handing out a lot of business cards at events. That's it.
Okay. What else? Derek?
Yeah, business cards is a big one for me, trying to have those conversations and leaving that with someone that has my name, but
Mhm.
also trying to begin using my social media as a way of doing that. So
Mhm.
a couple weeks ago, I rebranded my social media. Like I have 3 Instagram accounts for the different things I do.
Mhm.
So they're not, they cross mingle when I share a post from one to the other story, but
Sure.
I want them to make sense for the audience I'm looking for. So
Yep.
I was able to do that, put a more professional picture in the profile in my bio as I work with Keller Williams.
Yep.
And actually make consistent content instead of like, I would post like 3 times a year or so.
Mhm.
So trying to consistently have something out there and sprinkle in a little bit of real estate information
Sure.
within that, but not overwhelm people.
Perfect.
Yeah, I have an Instagram account called Equity with Allie. And I've just been trying to be consistent with that, and then doing just doing that, open houses, definitely passing out business cards, but I also created a link tree for free, which gives you a QR code so that I'm trying to, because with a business card, it just kind of like goes in the bottom of people's purses, I feel like, or like in their back pockets. But this,
Yep.
it's like, if I can get them to scan something with me and then just put their information so I have it,
Sure.
then I can reach out to them. So that's kind of been my focus, to try to find something that I can get their info. But you can also ask for their business card. Most people have them, but I wanted something like that. And then also I've been posting like a postcard size version of that
Mhm.
at different like community boards around town, so we'll see.
Great.
So I haven't started in the ball game yet, but I have some marketing concepts that I'd like to do. We run a very small homestead at the house.
Yep.
And we have a small Instagram following and so forth. And after the Matt Erdman talk the other day, whatever the tax code is for hosting events at your house as
Yeah.
opposed to going to pay for another location.
Yeah.
My wife and I had already planned on putting some of these together, but doing a quarterly pig roast.
Yeah.
Open to the homestead community, and just having people over to the house, and therefore gaining contact information and creating the conversation organically.
Yeah.
And then we have a small farmer's porch where I can seat about a dozen people. Originally, I was going to do a donation dinner, but after learning through the process of that, opening it up for first come, first serve 12 to sign up.
Yeah.
With information, and my wife and I doing a nice seated dinner with conversation throughout
That's
the
awesome.
night around that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Ally mentioned social media too. I think the fact that most of what you can do, 99% of what you can do online for marketing can be free. I understand that with a lot of our algorithms, certainly on Meta, with FaceBase and Insta, to beat the algorithm, you have to do paid ads and all that kind of crap. I think if you are doing, like Nathan said about the hard mailers, you're doing consistent content and you're, to what you just spoke about, like being in the place that you're already at, right? What are you near that you're not in? Like what space could you be, running that conversation, because you already share the commonality with these other people and you bring people in, you're doing something you enjoy doing. My hope for all of you as your coach, Zoe and I want this for you guys so much. I want real estate to be the background music. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if you think about really enjoying what you're doing and having the people in your life that are transacting once every 5 to 7 years, we have to show up as a human, and we can play in that space that we really enjoy, like how we're getting together, how we're gathering with our people. And that's not a chore. On top of that, then it starts to unveil itself as this isn't really lead imitation, this is lead generation. I just frosted like a shit cake with shit frosting, like then everything tastes bad now. That's not going to be long. That you won't play that long enough. The duration of that will wear on you, and you'll start to despise your decision to do real estate if you start to play in a space where you're doing it to be transactional. I'm doing what I think is going to work fastest. And I know I talk about Simon Sinek way more than anybody wants to talk about Simon Sinek. I love him. His newest book, his third book. So the 3 books are Start With Why. The second book is Leaders Eat Last. His newest book is The Infinite Game. That's pun intended, a game changer. I think if you start to focus on your business, I'm doing things now that are organic and true to myself, and they focus on the why of my business. And there's going to be a long play. It's going to take a long time to get there. He told the story about he was at a speaking engagement. He got into this was clearly 1,000 years ago. He got into a cab, and there was another executive that was trying to jump into a cab, and they decided to share the car. And unbeknownst to him, the guy sitting in the car with him was an Apple executive. He had just finished speaking at Microsoft, and they had given him, do you remember this? The Juke, that stupid little music player that Microsoft tried to make happen. Oh boy, oh boy. So he's showing, the Apple executive. He didn't know at this point yet, and they were talking about what they do. And he's like, "Oh," he goes, "I'm a branding executive," and he's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "What do you do?" He goes, "I'm an author and a speaker. I just spoke at this event," and he was, being a little tongue in cheek. He's like, "Microsoft, maybe you've heard of them." The guy still doesn't reveal that he's Apple, right? But Microsoft is winning in the space right now because the Juke for about 17 minutes was amazing, right? So you started using it. When you were unwrapping it, it was great. As soon as you started using it, it was horrible. And he was showing him the juke and the guy's like, yeah, he goes, they're really crushing the space right now. It's very, yeah, he's like, I'll never forget how he said it. He goes, by the end of our ride, I found out he was Apple. I sort of felt weird, but now I know what he meant. They knew the long play. Their products were gonna, because they've always talked about this, and I make this example all the time. If you get a chance to go on, just from a marketing standpoint, get a chance to go on the YouTubes, punch in iPad Air Robin Williams. You're gonna get the commercial that they ran with Robin Williams for iPad Air. It is all visuals. They're running the monologue from the Dead Poet Society, which made me love it even more because, I mean, that freaking movie was just gold. They're running the monologue where he is quoting Whitman, right? And it's just, the whole thing is focusing on the fact that, the world is a poem. What will your verse be, right? And it was just showing people living their life, using the iPad to elevate what they're doing in their life. And and Sinek talks about this in his first book. When you see marketing from them, they always talk about how it affects the human experience. They never open up with best tech, best engineers, we're the best. It's not like, DJ Khaled, right? We're the best. Like, it's just their ethos has always been making the human experience and our ability to communicate with each other and live better lives is at the center of everything they do. That commercials lights out. And that whole ride in the cab with the guy from Apple, and the guy's like, yeah, they're crushing the space right now. And he meant like, yep, I'll wait. Yeah. And the juke, yeah, they were off by one vowel, right? The juke was a joke. I mean, I don't know who, maybe that guy held on to his job for 12 more minutes, or girl, maybe it was a girl that screwed up. I feel like a girl wouldn't have made that bad of a decision though. The juke. Anyway, how do we stay top of mind? If I walked in, if your family was having a cookout this summer, I walked into the backyard and we could somehow put helmets on everybody so I could know what they were thinking. I blew a whistle, got everyone's attention and screamed real estate. Would your name be one of the three names that was in the top of their head? Because that's what we're fighting for. If you can be the name, then you're winning. But are you at least one of the three names that the people closest to you think about when somebody says real estate or when the topic comes up? And that's about us just showing up and having real estate always be the reason we're connecting with them, but not the crux of the reason. Like, I'm having this event to celebrate my team and my clients. And you're inviting your friend Steve, who's still never transacted with you. But you want him to be there because you want him to see what you do. And maybe he sent you some referrals. But everything that you're doing, you're empowered to do it because of the money you've made in real estate. And because you just want to make sure you're celebrating the people around you. And we have to keep showing up in the gap. Like, look at the teams in our company that do really well, and look at the events and the reasons they're creating to get together with their people outside of the transactions every 5 to 7 years. That's how people win. You can, and every office, every company, every brand is guilty of this. You can walk around this office today and you can identify transactional realtors and experiential realtors, and how they're making their team feel about what they do and how they're making their people, their clients, their consumers feel about what they do. And that goes back to Maya Angelou, right? People will rarely remember what you said. They'll remember how you made them feel, right? So are the scripts important? The series of questions are. The slick words are never going to get you the deal. The inquisitive words are going to uncover their emotions. And that's going to be important. Because when you make people feel a certain way, it's because in your presence, they were allowed to tell you how they felt. And if we're always talking, that never happens, right? And then, of course, while we're doing all that, we got to make sure that we're qualifying our buyers and sellers, which sounds like, well, of course I'm going to do that. But people don't. Everyone will be guilty of this at some point in their career. You are out on a Saturday looking at 5 to 6 properties with somebody who still hasn't sat with Brad, who still hasn't shown you proof of funds, who still hasn't filled out the New Hampshire broker's disclosure, who still hasn't filled out the KWCLM general disclosure, which is the, why am I drawing a blank? The hazmat, all the things, right? Megan's Law. And just a little side note on that, I know Jason's not here. I'd have him chime in if he was. When we go over that KWCLM general disclosure where it talks about hazmat and Megan's Law, which is the predators and all that kind of stuff, we never do that research for them. The Joneses are moving to 123 Main Street. I don't go do the search. Because I go do a search and I check on the records and I can tell, I could go back to them and say, hey, just looked. There are no registered offenders in 8-mile radius. Okay, when are they moving? 17 days from now. You're gonna check tomorrow? You're gonna check the day after that? Because what if in 3 days somebody moves in? They're they're signing that KWCLM general disclosure about all their rights to do their due diligence to recuse you from that conversation. We're not doing the research for them. We're making them aware of the research they should do. We don't want to paint ourselves into that corner. It's not that we don't care. We don't want to be bound to that. We're making them aware of their rights. Some ahas. How's your thinking changed today? Has anybody's thinking changed today?
My first thing on qualifying buyers.
What's that?
Qualifying buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
As a brand newbie, that conversation right away, you just want to get out there and be active and be in the environment. And just the thinking of you're definitely not setting yourself up for rapid success by not taking that step in the beginning.
Yeah.
For me,
Yep.
as opposed to just being like, oh, great, you want to go see houses, let's go,
Yep.
and so forth. And the excitement I get personally
Yep.
Needs to be tampered down to the process ultimately.
Yeah, finding a balance in that too, because obviously, he was just in here with you. You're a sponsor here at the company, right? And again, let me be clear about this. When we fill out that binding sponsorship agreement and we name our sponsor, everyone that joins the company does that. That sponsor, Gary's very clear about the words, they are your sponsor, not your mentor. Although we have a lot of great agents who sponsor other agents who also are very happy to take them under their wing and make sure they're good. So if you did go out and trip over a piece of business in the next 20 minutes, you'd be good. You'd be good. You got a great system, right? And everybody at this company would be. I don't think there's I hope I say this enough. If you ever tripped over an opportunity you didn't feel ready for, you just call one of us so we can hook you up with the right agent to go sit at that kitchen table to get you the listing. That's going to be a conversation between you and them about the math. Above and beyond that, don't overthink it. We usually get analysis paralysis, and I'm getting ready to get ready. Let's have a meeting about the meeting before the meeting. Well, my favorite now, that meeting could have been an email. What do you feel differently about today? How much of this is showing up as a job now, as opposed to a career? And I say that carefully, and I'm going to correct myself in a little bit.
Something that you clarified for me a little bit, combined with an experience I had yesterday, was when we were looking at the numbers and how much of it is referrals from friends and family. And yesterday I had a very unique experience. I met a unicorn, essentially. A friend of mine texted me, he said, it's been a little while. It's been like 2 weeks. How are you doing? I was like, oh, that's really kind. He reached out first. I told him I was doing all right. I've been traveling, which is why he hasn't seen me at church. And then he said, I'm not sure how much you're in the know, but I know like 5 people in our church community who might be looking for a house. I don't know how many of them have agents. Here are their names. You should go talk to them. It's like, this guy isn't real. Like, he's a unicorn.
Awesome.
That's not
awesome.
real. But that combined with those numbers really solidifies that you need to be talking to people and saying, who do you know that I should know?
So he either gets 5 separate copy cards, right? And I would honestly, as you have conversations with people and meet with them or whatever, he just gave you what, 5 at bats, no word of a lie? Yeah, just to impress upon him that this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
hey, thank you so much. Like maybe said in the first one, thank you so much for the opportunity. I did meet with the Lindsays. I love that your ears are wide open and you're willing to be a resource for me. Here's a cup of coffee. I'd love to have the next one with you. Then the next one, if you know where he is and you guys can meet, you guys get together. But we have to get really good at when somebody gives us an at-bat, we don't only thank them when we get to the closing table. We have to thank them for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? If you ever studied psychology, it's Pavlov's dog, right? That whole series where they rang the bell and fed the dogs and they stopped feeding the dogs, but the dogs still salivated.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we engineer in their brains that when they give us an at-bat, we thank them. You know, not just like if we get to the closing table, because more often than not, we might screw up at the kitchen table, never get to the closing table, not their fault.
Yeah.
Or the person's not really able, willing, or ready.
Yeah.
Also not their fault. Good for you, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Nice work. What actions will we be differently, will we take differently moving forward? What actions and tools? And I know this can feel counterintuitive, but we're not going to change. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, when we're doing Ignite, we're in this classroom, learning about what to do. The old Ignite actually had class activity. That's how the week went. So Zoe and I are just like, well, if we're going to start Fight Club in January, which we did, we're just going to do it this way. So tomorrow, 9 o'clock, kwfightclub.com. What actions will you take differently? Today, even, because you guys haven't had a chance to lead gen today yet, I trust. Anybody, anything? Nothing. No judgment. You're going to answer in your heart. It's okay. I'd love to see you guys on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The numbers are growing, the activities are growing, which is super good. And here's what we're looking to do every day. Has anybody had a day where they've hit 10 conversations? Derek, good. Not yet. Okay. I feel like Paul definitely has. You had 10 conversations, Paul?
I had a great day yesterday. A friend of mine set up a party for me to be introduced to all the prominent people, and I met 25 new people.
That's awesome. Sweet. Anything come of it immediately?
I handed out a lot of cards. It was there to introduce me as a realtor. Yeah.
That's huge. Who did that for you?
The lady that I bought the house from, her name's Suki.
Suki?
Yeah, Susan Lassen, but everyone calls her Suki. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it already sounds like a sitcom. I love this. Good for you, man. That's awesome. That's a great freaking day. Dear Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's strive, make sure we're having those 10 conversations. Don't forget to storyboard those, right? If you know who you want to talk to tomorrow, storyboard what you're going to say when you talk to Paul, when you talk to Nate, when you talk to Tim. Business will come up. Get permission to add those people to your database. Send those handwritten notes, thanking them for the time on the phone. Super powerful. Don't lose your mind on handwritten notes. They don't need to be embossed with KW or your name or your ego. Go to the Christmas tree shop and get 8 million butterfly cards for $2. Just make sure they're note card size so they don't get lost in the mail with the bills or filed in the trash with their taxes. It looks like an invitation with a quick little note. Hey, Paul, thanks for taking my call yesterday. Great talking to you. Here's the business card you asked for. Look forward to speaking with you soon. Always in for the next call. 1051, that is 10 hearts or likes on our social media. Go into social media, 10 likes, 10 hearts, 5 comments on other people's stuff of 5 words or more. And then the one is either share something that you love that somebody else posted, or at least one post from you. And can you do both? Sure. I very rarely share other people's stuff. Unless it's something near and dear to my friend, they're doing a fundraiser, whatever. I don't post anything really. I share what my wife tags me in stuff that our kids do, and then I allow that to be on my page because I'm a grumpy old man. We've discussed this quite a bit. It's expensive. This is the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. The violations can be up to $43,280. Question? Yeah. It's more than trying to get a gun on a plane. That's amazing. I love that. That's amazing. So Derek just said he was traveling and it's 15K if they catch you with a weapon. 43K if you assault somebody over the phone, right? Yeah. So so here it is. Don't be a telephone terrorist. There, I said it. Do not call.gov. You can grab, I believe you can grab 1 or 2 area codes for free. After that, there is a price attached to it. The best way to avoid having to do this at all or running into this at all is calling the people in your phone. Yes, people in your phone might be on the do not call list. Aunt Julie is not going to have you arrested because you called. She's on the do not call list for people she doesn't want to talk to. She loves you. When you call, she's Aunt Julie. She's not a prospective client, although she might have referrals for you, as we saw on slide number 2 earlier this morning. We have this every day. You guys ever watch Sesame Street when you were younger? Yes. You know how they repeat the show 50,000 times? My wife made a great point ages ago. At one point, when I was in radio, I was going in, because you sort of move through shifts. You start on like weekend overnights, and you go to overnights, and you go to late nights, then you go to nights, then you go to middays, then you go to afternoons, then you go to mornings. So when I was at ERZ, I ended up doing all the shifts. And then I got fired from the morning show because my mouth got me in trouble. That's a story for another time. For the dumbest reason, I wish it was sexier. The story's really stupid, but anyway. My point being, at one point, my wife was working with a medical claims adjustment firm during the day. I was doing at that point, nights. And then after I lost my morning show, I left ERZ, went back to HEB, and I was voice tracking overnights. So I was a stay-at-home dad up until Cameron was 4. Yeah. And I had a point about all this. Oh, she joked that Sports Center is almost like Sesame Street because they keep replaying. I said, yeah, by the time you get home, I've got the Spanish Sports Center memorized. So if you want me to do that while I'm cooking dinner for you, she's out making money. But yeah, they repeat it, right? Because by lunchtime, if you've got your child in front of PBS, they know the letter is T, the number is 2, and the color is green. Because that was beaten into them for the last 90 minutes, right? So that's why we put these affirmations in every day. I engage in every conversation in the spirit of contribution and that people are happy to be in relationship with me. Not I'm going to call people and bother them, so I'm not going to call them. The bold law is people are home and they're happy and they're going to list with me. Whatever your positive affirmation needs to be to get your head right, to get on the phone with people. Like, who have you not talked to that's in your phone that you care about, that if you called them, they would not be offended? That's probably almost everybody, because you're not going to call and ask them if they're looking to buy, sell, or invest. You're going to call and say, I'm sorry, it's been so long. How are you? And you're going to start talking. They're eventually going to ask you about work because you're going to ask them about work. Because what do? Family, occupation, recreation, dreams. The acronym FORD is the conversation that every human being has organically when they interact with another human being. We talked about storyboarding your calls. At night, and this is baked out for you. Look in the morning news this morning. What does Zoe and I have on the corner of the morning news, right under 90 days out? Because I do believe today being May 1st, holy Lord, it is actually 90 days out from July 30th. And underneath where it says July 30th in the morning news, which came into your email at about 7:14 this morning, it also says the DTD2. Do the database too. To stay out of call bias, this is a tool that we use at Keller Williams to make sure that we're going to randomly call different people every week. And the DTD2 gives you 2 letters to call and 1 letter to text for the entire week. So go find those letters, figure out who needs to get a phone call from you tomorrow, and storyboard what you're going to talk to them about. If not, you can leave it in the message. Hey, Stacy, it's Timmy. Sorry it's been so long. I saw that your daughter Carly had her birthday. Looks like you guys are doing great. I'd love to catch up soon. Let's meet for a coffee or a drink, whatever. It's not about real estate. That's gonna come up at some point. Is she transacting right now? No, she's trying to pull frosting out of the carpet. She just had 15 8-year-olds running around her house. She's not selling. She's cleaning. It's the day after her birthday party. Show up like a human. What do we have for successes? Since you guys have started, Paul just had a great one. You had someone who sold you that house throw a party so everyone else that she knows can know that you're a real estate agent. I think Paul might win. Allison, what do you have for a celebration? And Paul, if you have another celebration, please share. Anybody in the room? Something they want to talk about that's a win so far. Anything is a win.
I've got one.
Go ahead.
I brought my 3-year-old into my barber shop that I grew up going to.
Yep.
And Les, the octogenarian barber who still pulls one shift a week, who owns the establishment down in Hampton, was there. And I was just talking to the whole group as to, where I was going in my new career path. And
Yep.
He immediately came right over and said, well, we need to sit down and talk. I'm looking to downsize, looking for something with an in-law, to possibly have my kids in there in the future. And
Oh my God.
kids. And, it was just an organic conversation. that
Perfect.
it was great.
Perfect. Perfect. That's awesome.
So you're good to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and Derek didn't get arrested at the airport. It's a win. It's a win. I tried. We're flying this weekend. I have no desire. Just a reminder, I know there's a lot of places we send you organically for our market center. If you have anything you're looking for, go to kwclmhub.com. The great Brittany Goodale and Zoe Kirkpatrick, they got together. A lot of people helped them with this, but those two ladies, for the most part, built this hub. It's got everything. What is the license number for the North Conway office? It's on there. What's Nate's favorite color? Look in his bio. I'm just kidding. We don't have favorite colors. But like, if you're wondering, who's this, who's that, our entire staff with our photos and how to get a hold of us is there. On the homepage of kwclmhub.com, it says training videos. If you click that, it will take you to kwclmlearning.com, which is our entire learning hub where all these videos reside. Command you should know about. If you have not opened up kw.agent.com, I'd love for you to get there sooner than later. The goal is to get at least 200 people into your command. We know when people get between 200 and 1,000, that's a big delta. I get that. You get between 200 and 1,000 people in your database. Nationally, the average for GCI is $119,000. You get 600 people in your command and run a 36 touch. The ratio is 12-2. For every 12 people in your database, there's 2 deals. So well executed over the course of 12 months, there's about 50 deals. A lot of those will be referrals. Sure. Still good money. 50 times 10,000. I'll wait. Yeah. Doesn't suck. Yeah. Yeah. Get the steak. Yeah. It's going to be a good weekend. Get the lobster too. Get whatever you want. And then Connect is a great resource as well. KW Connect. If you guys go there, go to KW Connect across the top. It says there's all these tabs. One of them says resources. When you get to resources, drop down to KWU. You click into that, you'll find Ignite 2022, which is what this is, Ignite 6.0. Click into materials, it will also show you where all the student resources are. The big, huge script book and everything. If you having trouble finding any of this stuff, just reach out to one of us. But kwclmhub.com is pretty much a one-stop shop. Wednesday, we'll be back for Win the Buyer. That is session 14, Win the Buyer, on Wednesday, 9 to 11, right here in Portsmouth and online at kellerignite.com. Allison, Escape, Paul, have a wonderful morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tim.
See you, bud. Take care, guys.